Just an old-fashioned love song. What's this about a senator going to El Salvador to demand the release of what? All right, it's time for another truck rant. I don't know if you guys heard, but in popular parlance in politics these days, you hear the term 80-20. That's an 80-20 issue. An example would be men and women's sports. 80% of the population is against men who transition into women playing against women in women's sports for obvious reasons. You know, we could go into it. Their physiology is different, whatever. There's a myriad of different talking points and counter talking points. But generally speaking, 80-20. 80% of the population is against men playing in women's sports, and 20% of the population is for it. I don't know if those are exact numbers, but that's an example. And that might even be a 90-10. At this point, that might be a 90-10 issue. I think Trump is an evil genius. I think he knows exactly what he's doing, and it is hilarious. Now, when he was doing his speech in front of Congress when he got elected, the Democrats had their little paddles, and they said, they had something derogatory on them against Elon Musk, and they were going to wave those paddles anytime Donald Trump brought up Doge, or how great Elon and his team of geniuses, or whatever. They were set up to protest specific talking points that they thought that the president would be talking about. So what did he do? He brought up issues that only a person who is sick or evil or a complete degenerate would possibly be against. Example, that young man who, I don't know if he had cancer, he had some sort of a terminal illness or a life-threatening illness, and they made him an honorary police officer. Yes, obviously it was for show, but it was one of those things where, how could you possibly be against that? How is that a partisan thing? So what happens? When everybody stood up to clap, all the Republicans stood up and clapped, all the Democrats sat there with sourpusses and their little stupid signs. Why? Because their little stupid signs did not apply to any of the talking points that Donald Trump brought up. And they looked like morons. They literally looked like children throwing temper tantrums. I could even see that some of them were uncomfortable. They were very uncomfortable sitting there thinking, oh my God, I can't believe I have to act like I'm against cancer. Cancer would be a 90-10, right? 90% of the population is against cancer. 10% of it is for it. That might even be a 99.9.01 issue. But because the Democrats have backed themselves into a corner where they have to essentially be against Donald Trump at all costs, no matter what the issue, no matter how nonsensical it is, they have to be against him. He is weaponizing that. It would be exactly like cancer. It would be like me saying, yes, I won all the swing states. He was winningest presidents of all time. All the swing states got all the votes, mandated the populace. I am writing executive order to end cancer. And the left is like, how dare you? We will fight for your cancer. Cancer for everyone. We will not only fight for cancer, but we will make sure that you all equally get cancer. Everyone will have equal cancer together. Right? I mean, that's basically what they're arguing for. So, what are we talking about in the news? Yeah, I think Trump's a genius. I think that he does these things specifically because he knows that the Democrats, the leftists, the populists, the collectivists are going to come out and protest and rail against any decision he makes. So what does he do? The Maryland Man. Who is the Maryland Man, you ask? Well, he's a gentleman by the name of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I hope I pronounced that right. So, according to the Democrats, the Maryland Man is a doting father, a dutiful husband, a contributing member of the society that was kidnapped by the Republicans and deported to El Salvador against judges' orders. He was kidnapped, deported to El Salvador, and now sits in a super prison kind of like the Tartarus or whatever they lock the Titans in, essentially. And I wouldn't have thought anything of it. I know that the left is going to rail against everything. Like we all knew. You can watch 5 minutes of news on 2 or 3 different channels to know that he's an MS-13 gang member. And he had 2 judges that basically stated that he was an MS-13 gang member and he was subject to deportation because he was an illegal alien. And he was a citizen of El Salvador, and even though there was some sort of a standing order not to send him to El Salvador, now that he's there, they are basically, whatever. It's done. He's gone. Whatever. Good riddance. Now, I wouldn't have thought anything of it normally. Just left gonna left what the left do. They're gonna yell and scream about everything. They're gonna talk about, due process when an illegal immigrant's not a citizen, so they're not entitled to due process. Should they have it? I think so, yes. I think everybody should have due process. However, if you're not a citizen of the United States, you have no constitutional rights. You have no rights. Could we say that the moral thing would be to make sure that everybody gets a fair day in court just to make sure? Yeah, absolutely. Totally for it. But he had his by 2 different judges. Again, I wouldn't have really cared. The left's just going to do what the left does, and they're going to scream and whine and cry, hold riots, whatever. But a close personal family member of mine came out, and we were driving home, and this person said, I don't like Donald Trump. I think I was playing a YouTube video, and I was laughing at something Don was doing. I asked, well, what do you dislike about him? The conversation kind of went around like the tariffs and how he's basically trying to steal like people's Social Security money, and how he's deporting United States citizens. And I was like, whoa, time out, back up. Where are you hearing this? And with a look of disdain and mild annoyance, this person stated to me, the news, duh, just like that. What? I thought I'd touch you better than that. I'm a horrible father. For shame. Look, me being like a libertarian, borderline anarchist, classic liberal, freedom, Marines, baby. We swore an oath to defend that Constitution, and we mean it, damn it. I'm all for people holding their viewpoints. The one thing I can say I can respect people that they're honest in their beliefs. Like, say they believe something, whether it's right or wrong, and they think that their point of view or their opinion is more true or factual or honest or moral or whatever, fill in the blank. If they actually honestly believe what they stand behind, I can respect that. And we can have discussions. Because if you are a person with integrity, you would be open to discussion. And then if you're wrong about something, you would probably be open to changing your mind about it. So, I had to dig in. What news? Well, he's talking about like MSNBC, CNN, the usual. We'll even throw Fox News in there, all the legacy media. So you're getting your information from the news. Yes. So you watch the news in the morning before you skedaddle off to do your daily thing. And you're talking a bunch of the news. According to the news, we are under a Nazi regime, and at the same time, we're run by oligarchs. I don't know how that's possible. And there's a grievous threat to our democracy, even though we don't live in a democracy. We live in a republic under the rule of law. And I had to explain that to him. So we got to talking, and I said, look, I can see how you would think that, but have you looked at any other news sources? I mean, there's tons of them. There's YouTube. For YouTube, I wouldn't say YouTube's got everything. You can long-form podcasts where you can listen to someone speak for 3 hours. It's a really good way to find out, how somebody is, as opposed to quotes taken out of context. Or there's the other one I really like is Ground News. Ground News is great. It aggregates all the news sources, or at least most of them that I can think of, and it compares articles from the perspective of left, right, center. It tells you basically if an article is published by a progressive-leaning organization, It also states how truthful they are by the metrics of NewsGuard and things like that, things that monitor truth and reporting. And it also goes into deeper and it describes whether or not something's actually being reported factually or if it's an opinion piece. So you get to see like what both sides of the aisle are saying about something, or even more interesting, if one side's reporting it and the other isn't. That's always interesting. That's where we get juicy. Well, this person wasn't much interested in my take. He or she didn't really want to hear what I had to say, you know. So I thought I would give this person something a little more palatable to start out with. So I introduced him to the Nuxonor, Nuxonor, YouTube channel. It's basically, what do they call those little anime dudes that talk over videos? I forget what they call him. He's a pretty funny dude. He's a comedian, and he basically does commentary on social issues, the news, that kind of thing. And I thought that's a good digestible way to start. Yes, he tends to lean more towards the conservative side of talking points, but anybody with common sense these days is going to be considered a conservative. Honestly, I'm really at this point. If you believe in basic decency and common sense, you're a conservative. That's where we are now. So let's talk about our friend Kilmar, or whatever the hell his name is. A U.S. senator on taxpayer money flew to El Salvador to confront, basically confront their government and demand the release of, what the hell is his name again? Kilmar. Mr. Garcia. I have it written down, just keep forgetting his name. I had to do some research for this one. And they were like, no. They were like, well, the courts ordered it. And they were like, no. We demanded it. No. So, why won't they release him? And why did we send him off? So, according to the Democrats, we basically took a United States citizen, a family man, a loving father, a contributing member of society. We kidnapped him and sent him to a super prison in El Salvador. But if you do just the tiniest bit of research, you find that he was an MS-13 gang member. He was caught with other MS-13 gang members, and he was found to be an MS-13 gang member by two separate judges. Now, doting father, dutiful husband. And in 2019, he had restraining orders against him for beating his wife up. Okay. So, what's the Democrats' argument against that? Well, they seem to have patched things up, and they're doing fine now. That's interesting, because right now he's at a certain level with MS-13 where the next step for him to become vetted, or basically a made man, is to murder somebody. And isn't it amazing now that his wife is madly in love with him? Once he, perhaps might be on the chopping block. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we'd be best friends too, right? So it's just, I don't know. It's such a joke. The other thing, and we'll even say the most important thing, but the thing that is brushed under the rug the most, is that he's an illegal alien. So what the left is doing is they are essentially classifying illegal aliens, and they're separating them by levels of violence or potential violence. Meaning, if you're an illegal alien and you're over here and you work and you're quiet, you don't cause any trouble, you're not a legal alien. You're basically, that makes you a citizen of the United States, and under their contentions. So by chipping away at it, by making it so Trump has to only focus on the most violent, heinous, blatantly evil. Because what is their argument? Their argument is like, well, he contributes to his community, he has a job, he's got a wife, he's got a kid, he's not that bad. They said that he was initially an asylum seeker, but bottom line is he's an illegal alien, and he is in an organization that was decreed to be a terrorist organization by the Trump administration. So I don't understand how the left can possibly argue for violent, gang members who murder people for their initiation. They're one of the most violent gangs on the planet. And he's been violent to his wife in the past with restraining orders. And on top of that, he's an illegal alien from El Salvador. Their other argument was a while ago, sometime in the past, there was an order not to deport him to El Salvador. He can go anywhere but El Salvador. Why? Because El Salvador, he's a criminal. And he thought that if he went back to El Salvador, he'd probably be killed. I don't know the whole story behind that. All I can report on is what I know to be factual. And what is factual is he is an MS-13 gang member. He is a citizen of El Salvador. And he's now in an El Salvador prison where he's a citizen. There you go. Justice has been done. I don't know. Oh, you're so heartless. You're so racist. Yeah, okay. I didn't know gang members was a race. Am I heartless? Look, here's the thing, man. My heart really truly goes out to people that came over to America looking for a better way of life. And they were sold an easy path. You know, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but they've been digging into what the Biden administration did. And they're paying a lot of these illegal aliens the full amount that Social Security can be paid. And on top of that, they're giving them food stamps and medical benefits. Now, American citizens can't get that. The ones who've worked all their lives don't get the full amount. You know what I mean? They struggle for coverage. They struggle. They have to. I've seen people like apply for food stamps, and it does seem like some people get it easier than others. But the bottom line is, it is very difficult for some American citizens to get benefits, and they were giving them away to the legal aliens the maximum amount. What a slap in the face. That goes against everything this hat stands for. That pisses me off. So right there, Merry Christmas, there's your tax money. That's what that's going to. So, it just blows me away. I was watching Bill Maher, and they were talking about the same issue. He was with Charlie Kirk, and Bill said he didn't want to get into the weeds. When Charlie Kirk started explaining to him, like, are you aware that he was an illegal alien and he had restraining orders against his wife? He's like, I don't want to get in the weeds on this one. He was not aware. So Charlie was gracious enough to not lambaste him on his own show. He kept it civil, but you could tell, like, you got these liberals that have their own television show. They have huge audiences, and they are not even aware. They don't even know what the truth is. And you can say, well, how do you know it's true? I look at all the evidence. I look at all the evidence what everything says. I look at what the left says. I look at what the right says, and I look at what the courts say. Let's say the courts being an impartial thing. If you had a court order, that has nothing to do with left or right. But I listen to all the arguments of the left saying, that he's not a danger. He's a good family man. He contributes to society. He's got a wife and kids. We stole a good one. And I listen to what the other side says, where he's clearly an MS-13 gang member and a violent criminal, and he's had restraining orders. If nothing else, the fact that he had restraining orders for domestic violence, I don't know. And he's an illegal alien. Hey, you know what? Tell it to the Pope, right? Now, the unfortunate thing about listening to legacy media, your CNN, really, is probably the worst. MSNBC, NBC, Fox, what are the other ones? You got the BBC, you got, I can't think of the other ones offhand, but you know what I'm talking about, your network and cable news. It's just, they're all essentially pundits for the left, the left talking points and their opinion. None of them are factual. There's a difference. Reporting used to be reasonably impartial. I mean, and you could tell where the bias was. And the news used to say when something was an editorial or an opinion, or when they were just reporting things as they came in. They don't do that anymore. Oh man, I made it home. Get all that crap off. Wash the dust away. I guess I'll finish up with doggies in the cages. Gotta let them out here in a minute. But, you know, to summarize, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't already know. Only thing I want people to do, look, I don't care if you're left wing, I don't care if you're right wing, I don't care if you're not into politics at all. But if you have an opinion, please, for the love of God, you know, at least look into both sides of an issue. And understand that nothing you see on TV is truthful. You know, you can say, like, this event happened, Yemen bombed ship. Okay, that actually did happen. But all the details that are piled on top of that, I can guarantee you are spin in one direction or the other. Either for or against. As a matter of fact, I challenge you to do that. Go online right now and look up the issues that's happening in Yemen. And look at how both sides are reporting it. And then get back to me. And you tell me. You tell me. And it doesn't count if you just look up CNN and Fox News. No, I mean, like, really look it up. Like, go to Ground News. Go to Ground News and do their little trial thing. And just see. Just look up just Yemen. Just that one. Or Gaza. Oh, Gaza. Holy crap. Oh, don't even get me started on the anti-Semitism. Man. But anyway, I didn't want this rant to go for too long. And I'm going to actually try to do a little bit of training today. So, on that note, I love you guys. And I'll see you on the battlefield.